Man, y'all already know who it is, man. ETM Hotel Rennie Sean. Welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the Science with Sean episode. I don't even know. I lost count. However, I do want to get into this whole spectacle of a misinterpretation of data regarding Pfizer's vaccine converting into DNA. Yeah. So I need you to walk with me through this lesson today. And I'm pretty sure that we'll probably have some people that'll come in or join the discussion late and probably miss the intent of the video. But for those of you who catch the replay, um, please make sure that you like the show, you share the show. This is something that other people haven't caught on to yet. I'm gonna go from there. So, look, man, I thought I was done doing all these debunking videos and we as a people have educated ourselves properly, and we've gotten to a point to where we actually can deal with knowing how to critique information and advance the stuff forward so that we don't have these issues. But it seems that we're still struggling in some areas. So I want to say peace to everybody in the chat that's looking right now. Peace to y'all. And peace to everybody that'll join us in a little while. And everybody that'll catch the replay. Peace is up. So I am broadcasting live from the Science with Sean channel and also the Mossy Warrior Clan YouTube channel. So if I get to looking in the chat or saying something about the chat, I'm just going to put what someone says in the chat, excuse me, on the screen so nobody's confused. But before we do get all the way started, though, share the stream. We live. Share it. We live, man. I know people are working. Share it. We live. They can listen in. It's all good. You hear my dog in the background. He's snoring. He really mad and in trouble. Ain't that right, Tyson? He trying to go to sleep, but he in trouble right now. Oh, Tyson then chewed on the highlighter. He done got highlighter green on his chest, on his arm, on his head. He done slung it. He done slung it everywhere. On the carpet, on the rug. He saw an opportunity. He took it and made a bad decision. Oh, Tyson. But let me go ahead and share my screen. I don't expect tons of thousands of people, man, or hundreds of viewers or anything like that. I expect the intimate crowd of people who really need this information because it's going to educate them and also help them in the middle of a pandemic. And we're still in an infodemic as well. But yeah, share the show, man. Let's get people going. I was going to do this later, but I'm going to do it right now. Knock this thing out. I'm pretty sure people are going to say, man, I didn't know you was live, but it's all good. So, first up, the actual open access article. It was published in the MDPI. For those of you who may not be familiar with the MDPI, I would suggest, I'm not going to do it on this stream, but I would suggest you look up to this stream and see how you could get your studies published here. As you can see, you can sign up, so you can sign in, sign up. They even got a tab for submits, which means that anybody could actually do their thing here, but it's also subjected to scrutiny. So this study, and I'm just going to read the abstract. but I also have it sourced up so you can access it, because I don't want people to miss the point. I want to start here. I should have did this the other way, but I wanted to start here first so you can see where this went. I'm gonna read the abstract and the results. We don't have to deal with the materials and methods, although I would highly recommend that you walk all the way through this. But I want to I'm trying to highlight some things. So I want to extract those things that are important to us in this conversation and in this bill so that we're all on the same page. Excuse me. Preclinical studies of COVID-19 mRNA vaccine BNT162b2 developed by Pfizer and BioNTech show reversible hepatic effects in animals that received the BNT162b2 injection. So I want to highlight here. Let me zoom in. I want to highlight here that the very first sentence tells us what's going on. A clinical study involving animals who received Pfizer's vaccine. I'll say it again. A clinical study involving animals who received Pfizer's mRNA vaccine injection. One more time for the people in the back. A clinical study involving animals who received the Pfizer vaccine injection. Furthermore, a recent study showed that Sars Cov2 RNA can be reverse transcribed and integrated into the genome of human cells. In this study, we investigated that effect of Pfizer's vaccine on the human liver cell in vitro. Clinical study on animals involving the Pfizer injection. And then they were looking at information regarding a previous study on the human genome of the human cell. So in the study, using the same Pfizer vaccine on a human liver cell, not the human liver. I need to be specific here. The human liver cell line. Let me highlight this for the people in the back. In this study, we investigated the effect of the Pfizer vaccine on the human liver cell line. This ain't the liver. This ain't the anything else. This is the human liver cell line. So let's go. The cell line they give us is the HU7. If we look up what the HU7 is, the HU7 is a type of human liver cell line that may be grown in the laboratory for research purposes. The HU7 is a type. See, I'm teaching right now. Y'all ain't catching it, but I'm teaching right now. The HU7 is a type of human liver cell line that may be grown in the laboratory for research purposes. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is why they put in vitro. This cell line, this human liver cell line, HU7, may be grown in the laboratory for research purposes. According to a website, hu7.com, it is a well-differentiated hepatocyte-derived carcinomal cell line, originally taken from a liver tumor in a 57-year-old Japanese male in 1982. So this cell line that can be created in a laboratory comes from a Japanese male From 1982. It is used extensively in hepatitis C and dengue virus research. Hold up. Wait a minute. Let me put some science in it. It is used extensively in the hepatitis C and the dengue virus research. The Hu7 cells have been instrumental in the hepatitis C research. Until 2005, it was not possible to culture hepatitis C in a laboratory. Come on now. Peace, indigenous black man. Walk with me. Let's start over. There's been fuss from anti-vaxxers about this article that was published. Sweden, they call it the Sweden study. That's why you'll see Sweden right here, Sweden right here. All right, cool. Excuse me. It was published on the 25th of February. The study involved the Pfizer vaccine. Regarding animal testings, some animal research, right? Some research they did vaccinating animals regarding the vaccine. And then they did a recent study about reverse transcribing integrated genome in the human cell. So this study investigated the effects of Pfizer vaccine on the human liver cell line Hu7. I'm pointing this out specifically because we need to understand two things. There was a study investigated on a human liver cell line, not a human, not a liver, but a human liver cell line, Hu7, which can be created in a laboratory, which comes from a Japanese man from back in the 80s. They used this cell line for two other vaccines, hepatitis C and the dengue virus vaccines. So this research is critical. So the Hu7s were exposed to the Pfizer, and quantitative PCR was performed on RNA extracted from the cells. We detected high levels of Pfizer in the Hu7 cells and changes in gene expression of long interpaced nuclear element 1 line 1, which is the endogenous reverse transcriptase. Immunohistochemistry using antibody binding line 1, opening reading frame 1, RNA binding protein, and they give us the protein name ORFP1, on the Hu7 cells treated with Pfizer's vaccine indicated an increased nucleus distribution of line 1. The PCR on genomic DNA of Hu7 cells exposed to Pfizer's vaccine amplified the DNA sequence unique to Pfizer's vaccine. Our results indicate a fast uptake of the Pfizer vaccine into the human liver cell line Hu7, leading to changes in line 1, expression and distribution. We also showed that the Pfizer vaccine mRNA is reverse transcribed intracellular into DNA in a fast as 6H upon the exposure to the vaccine. What does intracellular mean, ladies and gentlemen? Intracellular means, if I can find my word, without having to go pull up my book, what's going on? All right, hold up. I'm trying to get this thing to look it up. It didn't do it the first time. There you go. Okay. A little biology here. Intracellular is located or occurring within a cell or cells. An increase in intracellular calcium, as an example. Do we need to go a little bit further than that? We can open up the dictionary. See, we still get the same stuff. Man, why is this even open? I was done with that. Back to our regular scheduled program. So, we read the abstract. We have an understanding. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the results. We really don't even have to read the results. And I'm going to tell you why. We need to deal with the claim. I'm getting way ahead of myself because I'm trying to show people how this information that was printed in this article was printed and published, and how this information changes the game. Now, look, even in this article, it tells you where they got the cell line from. The Hugh 7 cell line was obtained from Japanese collections of research bioresources, cell bank. So when we looked up what the Hugh 7 was, we found out already that it came from a man from the 1980s in Japan. And they're just reproducing or recreating this cell line from this Japanese guy to advance vaccine science. There's 2 other vaccines where they use the test on the cell line, not the liver cell line, Hugh 7. All right. Do I want to get into this? Because this is long. Nah, I want to get into the claim. The results don't even matter right now. We're going to come back to the results. You're going to get the results, trust me. So we have a website right here. It's called Great Game India, Journal of Geopolitics and International Relations. It says spike protein induced by COVID vaccines inhibits DNA repair and is linked to cancer, finds major Swedish study. So there's more to the story. According to a major Swedish study, the spike protein induced by COVID-19 weakens the immune system and may lead to cancer. Study found that the spike protein localizes in the nucleus and inhibits the DNA damage repair. All of this is interlinked. Spike protein weakens the immune system and inhibits DNA repair. The Swedish study read below published in the mid-October found that the spike protein-related COVID virus and experimental vaccines penetrated the cell nucleus. See? Severely interferes, damages repair functions of the DNA. This also comprises its individual adaptive immunity and even might lead to a formation of cancer cells. The study titled Sars Cov2 Spike Protein DNA Damage Repair and Inhibited Recombination in Vitro was published by the Department of Molecular Biosciences at Stockholm University. The study began with a discussion. I'm giving y'all everything. I'm giving y'all how this there's layers to this Swedish study. The adaptive immunity so that people can fight SARS CoV-2 infection. All right. However, researchers pointed out that various clinical studies have shown that patients with severe COVID-19 exhibit delayed and weak adaptive immune responses for reasons that are unclear. To provide reasonable answers to this question, the authors report that SARS-CoV-2 spike protein significantly inhibits DNA damage repair, which is required to effective VDJ recombination and adaptive immunity. Mechanistically, we found that the spike protein localizes in the nucleus and inhibits the DNA damage repair, they wrote. Our findings reveal a potential molecular mechanism by which the spike protein might impede adaptive immunity and underscore the potential side effects of full-length spike-based vaccines. Y'all see this? I got the video that was sent to me this morning in here. In an online lecture that addressed the study, this guy, I won't play the video because I ain't trying to get this mug. I ain't trying to get a strike. Well, I'm gonna play a video. I just ain't gonna play his. In an online lecture that addressed the study, Dr. Saeed highlighted how B cells and T cells, which are part of adaptive immunity, differ significantly in binding to a specific invasive antigen. This variability is produced by intentionally damaging the DNA of each cell and then repairing it. So I'm lining y'all up to understand, could he have been mistaken by anti-vaxxers? In addition, when our cells are dividing, there are strict mechanisms to make sure that the DNA is correctly repaired and correctly copied, and there is no damage. Otherwise, the cell will become a cancer cell. Specifically, this is his quote. Now, I want to tell y'all the grace of RNA, because RNA does something that helps continue the process for everything else. I cheated. Yeah, of course, I know. I'm supposed to know a little bit about something, and I'm supposed to be ahead of the game when I'm actually introducing this to people. Yeah, I know. However, let's build. I'm going to read it again, what he says in the video. When our cells are dividing, they are strict mechanisms to make sure that the DNA is, excuse me, correctly repaired and correctly copied, and there is no damage. Otherwise, the cell will become a cancer cell. What the hell that got to do with, Sean, what you just read in the abstract about this study, the cell line, the liver, and the whole nine? All right, I understand. Two relevant DNA repair mechanisms involve enzymes that are compared to repair workers, as in those of the PF nucleus of the cell. Imagine there are repair workers in your body, in our nucleus, that would rush to replace of a DNA break and go fix it. Now, imagine if these two enzymes cannot do their function. Imagine if they cannot even be produced. In such a case, when a spike and non-structural proteins are present in the nucleus, reduced proliferation of the cells occur. This means, with the regards to our B and T cells alone, our capability to respond to infections will not be good. Here we go. COVID vaccines alter DNA. Yes, COVID vaccines alter DNA. Now y'all see where I'm going. In an episode on the Highwire, journalist Jeffrey Jackson discusses how these pathogens get into the nucleus. The key word in all of this is not the vaccines. He is discussing a pathogen. So what is a pathogen if you don't know? Look, the Swedish study. This don't, oh, my bad. It didn't even do the whole thing. It did the gens. A pathogen is a bacterium, a virus, or other microorganisms that can cause disease. That's what a pathogen is. In an episode, The Highwire, journalist Jeffrey Jackson discusses how these pathogens get into the nucleus, which is particularly worrying. So let's talk about these pathogens. We now know what a pathogen is. If you didn't know what a pathogen was before, if you don't have my book, you should know what a pathogen is after I just pulled it up for you. So these two are discussing a pathogen. Let me do something real quick. And I should have did this before we really got going. What up, Margo? What up, Teddy? Tomorrow. EIE was good. So these people are discussing a pathogen. Let's hear what they have to say.
But let's geek out a little bit. Let's go into some deep science here. There's a study out of Sweden that I think everyone really should take a look at. It's really important. It's titled Sars Cov2 Spike Impairs.
What does this study say? We're going to get there. I got one study, but we're going to get there. We're going to get to the cell line, and we're going to get to all of these studies. I'm bringing this up. Don't worry, because look, in this study, in this study, as you can see, that was mentioned there, the abbreviation here, this information is in the study that I just showed y'all. So let's go. Now that we know where we're going with it. We got 2 studies and some of it extracting from there. You're going to see why.
DNA damage repair and inhibits VDJ recombination in vitro. Now, we're going to break this down a little bit, make it easy to understand. So what these researchers, what they write is they say here, by using an in vitro cell line, remember that's in a controlled environment, such as in the lab, like a petri dish or a test tube, we report that the Sars Cov2 spike protein significantly inhibits DNA damage repair. Mechanistically, we found that the spike protein localizes in the nucleus and inhibits DNA damage repair by impeding key DNA repair protein BRCA1 and 53BP1 recruitment to the damaged site. So a lot going on there, but one of the main takeaways we should really hear when reading that is it's concentrating in the nucleus. The nucleus of the cell is the main control center. It's the VIP section. It's the brain of the cell. Nothing should be getting in there like a spike protein. And even at the beginning, when these vaccines were getting...
Okay. Before I let the gibberish go, I had to cut it off because if I just let it play, they would probably strike the video as something crazy. So I wanted to kind of get that out there before he went left in having his conversation. Now, he's an investigative journalist. Del Bigtree is the leading anti-vaxxer, him and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So they're having a discussion about the Swedish study. And they're saying all of these things regarding the Swedish study. But in this video, he says he's discussing how pathogens get into the nucleus. Pathogens are bacterium, virus, or microorganisms that can cause diseases. He even says that these spikes get into, and then he says, this is the problem with these vaccines. What we know, right? What we know is that the vaccines do never enter the cell. The vaccines stay on the outside. They never enter the nucleus. I'm sorry. They never enter the nucleus of the cell. They never do. And we have the data to show and prove that. Now, here's a quote. The nucleus of the cell is the main control of the center, he said. Nothing should be getting in there like a spike protein. And even at the beginning, these mRNA vaccines were getting rolled out. We were told the vaccines do not enter the nucleus. We were told they do not alter the DNA. So this study appears to fly in the face of those statements. In addition, Jackson cites a Swedish study of how researchers analyzed key checkpoint proteins, BRCA1, 53BP1, regeneration pathways, and found that the spike protein markedly inhibited both the BRCA1 and the 53BP1 foci formation. He's an investigative journalist. He's not a scientist. He's not an epidemiologist, virologist, or immunologist. He is a journalist. He described the importance of these genes and said that women who inherit abnormal mutations in that area have a much higher lifetime risk of developing breast cancer. Now, can you see where the claim is coming from? They took the Swedish study that was talking about some cell linings and where they got the cell linings from and how they did all these other things, right? And then they went and they grabbed everywhere else. Now, this is the Swedish study, but there's more to it because there's another part of the study that's extracted. Now, I told y'all what some of this stuff was, and they're all basing this on the Pfizer vaccine. This is Pfizer vaccine generated. Secondly, he called the 53BP1 the guardian of the genome and referred to a 2018 study named the 53BP1 a key player of the DNA damage response with critical functions in cancer. This paper reports it has been extremely demonstrated that aberrant expression of that 53BP1 section contributes to tumor occurrences and development. Loss of function in the tumor tissues is also related to a tumor progression and poor prognosis in human male genesis. According to the video leaked by an insider from Facebook, it is seen admitting that COVID-19 vaccines will change your DNA and that he is not sure what would be the long-term effects of these vaccines. Mark, CEO in July 2020 said, but I do just want to make sure that I share some caution on this vaccine because we just don't know the long-term side effect. Now they're using a damn quote from a social media CEO. Now, uptick in cancer after vaccination. Do I need to continue to read y'all where this is going? In March 2021, Ryan Cole, a certified pathologist, reported autoimmune disease and cancer has been a significant uptick of cancer in patients who have been vaccinated against COVID. Since January 1 laboratory, I'm seeing 20 times increase in endometrial cancers over what I see on an annual basis. Let's go see if he sources this up. In terms of overall adaptive immunity, Cole says that post-vaccine, they were seeing is a drop in your killer T cells, which keep all other viruses at check. And this in turn makes patients more susceptible to a virus disease. And according to the Intermountain Healthcare Doctors, women who were recently vaccinated, COVID-19 may show symptoms of breast cancer as a side effect of a vaccine. Same source site. They want you to donate. Support Great Game India. Here. That ain't going nowhere. Pay. Summarizing the study's results, suggestions are made. Swedish researchers addressed the peers of a biomedical industry by Dr. Saeed. Went on to write on the whiteboard, do not make full-length spike protein vaccines. As per reports, women are experiencing irregular menstruations after getting vaccinated against COVID, with more heavier and painful periods. 6 months after coronavirus vaccines is widely distributed, United States National Institute has called a 1.6 million study on how COVID vaccines affects women menstruals. According to data, go there. So there's no information here, but they give you the rest of the source. Now, I should have been able to pull what they used up. But let me go ahead and do this. This is the other part of the information. Now, let me do this. I got to go back in my secret sauce to get y'all this other part of this study so that we can get into it. Hold on one second. I want to show y'all how this all comes to be. Hold on one second, y'all. Just hold up. Because I got to make sure that I give y'all something real quick. I got to give y'all the jewels. All right. I need to move the source and I need to move this other thing. So, all right. Now I want this. Do I want to kill it? Yeah, let me do this. All right. Here we go. Man, I appreciate y'all patience. But I didn't really want to do this way. First, let me look at this. Nope, I don't want to use that. All right, so here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Here's the study. But let me read something to y'all about the study. Expression of concern published on December 22nd, 2021. See virus 2022. So I have to do this, right? To make sure that I tell y'all where I'm going with this. Expressions of concern, SARS CoV2 impairs DNA repair. Here's study 2056, 2056, 13, 13. All right, everybody know what we on, right? Know what we on, right? All right, okay. Now, the study isn't here anymore. But guess what? We are issuing this expression of concern in consultation with the publisher to fulfill their reporting obligation regarding the publication mentioned above. One of the authors has raised concerns regarding the methodology employed in the study, the conclusions drawn, and the insufficient consideration of laboratory staff and resources. In order to keep the highest scientific standards, an in-depth investigation is initiated by the responsible editors together with the journal's editorial office in collaboration with the editorial board and in accordance with the Committee of Publication Ethics guidance. The article will be updated and any necessary corrections made at the conclusion of investigation process. Here is the study. What's the name of it? Expressions of concern. Forget this part of it. Forget this part of it. SARS CoV2 spike impairs DNA damage repair and inhibits the VDJ recombination in vitro. SARS CoV2 spike impairs DNA damage repair and inhibits VDJ recombination in vitro. SARS CoV2 spike impairs DNA damage repair and inhibits VDJ recombination in vitro. Further, COVID-19 spike protein paper earns an expression of concern. This is from retraction.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not include this in your source, but I will. This paper was retracted. This paper was retracted. These fools made an ass out of themselves. So let's read the retraction. A virology journal has issued an expression of concern about a paper claiming that SARS-CoV-2 virus can damage DNA after one member of the research team raised reservations about the reported findings. The article, SARS-CoV-2 spike impairs DNA damage repair and inhibits VDJ recombination in vitro, was written by a pair of scientists at institutions in Sweden and published in MDPI's Viruses. As Vincent Racaniello of 12 would say, the kind that make you sick. The paper has received a fair amount of attention, particularly among vaccine skeptics who, as critics noted, used the article to buttress their claims that COVID vaccines are unsafe, generating enough buzz on social media and in the news to make it into the top 5% of all articles tracked by Altmetrics. 12 even devoted part of an episode of a show to the findings. According to the journal, we're issuing this expression of concern and consultation with the publisher fulfilled their reporting obligation regarding the publication mentioned above. But I won't be using 12 here today. This is basically everything that I just read to you a second ago. Neither the authors nor handling editor have responded to requests for comments from Retraction Watch about the specific concerns of what insufficient consideration of laboratory staff and resources means. Updated 11422. The handling editor forwarded our request to comment to MDPI, whose head of publication ethics, Damaris Critchlow, responded. At the present time, the expression of concern serves as MDPI's public statement. An update will be made available upon finalization of an investigation. We've asked whether MDP would consider explaining what insufficient consideration of laboratory staff and resources means, and we'll update with anything we learn. Here you go. This hasn't been updated yet. There's expressions of concern. This is why you can no longer really read everything. Download the PDF. Just so people think that I'm not making stuff up. This is one page from the same site with the same title. I ain't making it up. You can no longer review the study unless you're on this website and you review it. It has been retracted. Moving forward. Natural News, a good place for debunktions. Claim vaccine spike proteins accumulate in the nucleus of the cell, destroys DNA repair pathways, paving the way for cancer and destroy the immune system. Verdict, incorrect. If you ain't got a lot of time, you just do this. Study published in October examined. Look, this is the key takeaway. I ain't got to get into all of that. The study published in 2021 examined how levels of Sars Cov2 spike protein could affect the process of DNA damage repair in cells growing in the lab. DNA damage repair in cells growing in a lab, not in humans, but in a lab, using what? A liver human cell line. See, I had to show y'all where they was doing research and using two other vaccines to come to their conclusion to advance that vaccine science. And then I had to take you to the motherland of misinformation. Peace out, Toronto. Because of the mechanisms of DNA damage repairs involved in the production of antibodies, some claim that the study shows spike protein in COVID-19 vaccines could damage the immune system and lead to cancer. However, these claims are unfounded, as they fail to account for the fact that the study was conducted in vitro, not in people. While in vitro research provides a valuable foundation for scientific exploration, more research is needed to determine if the results from the experiment accurately reflect what happens in an infected or vaccinated person. This was done in vitro. They hinged their conclusions on in vitro, which mistakenly misrepresented what this gentleman says in his video. They took pieces of what he said, put them in this particular article, and they discussed them for 7 minutes. You don't believe me? Let's listen to the rest of the No, I ain't doing it. Y'all can do it on your own time. Cause I don't want to get the strike. I got the Mossy up and the Science with Sean, and I don't want to get a strike, and then we can't go forward for months. But go back and check it out. I gave you the source. All right. Another source. Anti-vaxxers say a new study claims that mRNA vaccines can alter your DNA. Here's why experts say that's bunkum. Corona check. Y'all ready? Let's go. This week, we look at a fresh claim that mRNA vaccines put your genes at risk and bring you the latest on coronavirus lab leak theory. But we ain't going to get into the lab leak theory because it ain't really a theory. Meanwhile, they talk about the war and all of that. So, no mRNA jabs aren't genotoxic. Claims that COVID jabs can alter your DNA resurfaced this week as vaccine skeptics across social media seized upon the results of a new study to suggest that people receiving the vaccine risk changes or even poisoning their genes. Yes, the vaccines alter your DNA, read one post. It was viewed 30,000 times. Former TV chef Pete Everson also used Telegram channel to announce that mRNA could alter your human DNA, while also sharing an edited extracted from the study that suggested this process may potentially mediate genotoxic side effects. So, should we be worried? Not according to 3 experts consulted by Fact Check, who separately described the latest study as regrettably weak, not very robust, and very limited in its findings. Published by academics in the study, the Sweden study. Y'all don't believe me? Okay. You ain't gotta believe me. Here you go. Intracellular reverse transcription. This takes you back to what I already had on the screen. Intracellular You see that? Boom, bap. You see that? Because this is a different approach, but this gives you the crevice of this other article that they had out there that they had to retract. But let's move on. The study purports to show that the messenger RNA at the heart of Pfizer's vaccine can be converted to DNA inside the human cell via reverse transcription. This is a process where RNA itself, a product of DNA, creates DNA. However, inserting the DNA into our genome requires a secondary process called retrotransposition, which, as experts writing in the conversion have explained, is exceedingly rare. According to the fact sheet written by the U.S. Center of Disease Control and Prevention, the genetic material contained in mRNA vaccines never enters the nucleus of the cell, which is where your DNA is kept. Claims of mRNA altering a human DNA have persisted throughout the pandemic, despite being debunked by fact checkers Ruler Politico and AFP. As for the latest study, Trude Belhartz, an associate professor, RNA biologist at Monash University, my bad, ladies and gentlemen, I caught myself, provides us with this information below. The level of evidence it provides for reverse transcription is low, while the evidence for genome integration is non-existing. She said that if the vaccine had triggered the retrotransposition process, then the other approximate 10,000 mRNAs within the cell should be ending up in the genome too. Y'all thought they didn't have that science. But they simply doesn't happen. She added, explaining the human cells have myriad mechanisms to prevent it, and that there were many experimental tests available to researchers to detect even vanishingly rare retrotransposition events. Even so, the authors wrote that they did not know if DNA reverse transcribed from the Pfizer vaccine is integrated into the cell genome. An email to fact check article Fox, an associate professor at the University of Australia School of Molecular Sciences, noted several issues with the design of the study, including that it relied on artificially high dose of a vaccine. But in any event, the fact that something is found in DNA format is neither here nor there. Without proving it, it was integrated into the genome, she said. Stephen Turner, head of Monash University Department of Microbiology, also raised concerns about the concentrated dose tested, along with the absence of controls in the studies of use of cultured cells, which he said don't represent the tissue of our body. So to use it as evidence that these things change or get incorporated into our DNA is presumptive at best, misleading at worst, he said. So just to kill a dead horse, there you go right there. I've already showed y'all that, so I ain't got to bring that back up. We have the WHO, and this was a long time ago from the WHO. Everybody should know this. The COVID vaccines does not change your DNA. All right. So the WHO discusses this. This goes back a ways, right? This ain't nothing new. This goes back a ways. But if you want to read the WHO article, I left it in there for you to actually get to it. Politico, because you heard Politico. For the people who ain't got no time, Politico does a great job in trying to give it to you in a short time. Here you go. Findings from the lab-based study claiming that the spike protein of COVID-19 viruses cause DNA damage have been used to raise concerns about COVID-19 vaccine safety. COVID-19 vaccines uses modified versions of spike protein that functions differently from the program by the COVID-19 virus genetic material. Results need to be replicated in live animal and human studies to confirm clinical or physiological relevance. This goes through and debunks the whole claim of the actual paper. There's several questions in regard. Featured fact checker. They go through and they just annihilate it. Blog post came. The recent paper shows evidence that spike protein of COVID-19 virus can cause DNA damage, raising concerns with COVID-19 vaccine safety. The study, however, contradicts findings from the previous studies that were conducted in the isolated cells in a lab environment until their results are replicated in human studies. This has limited bearing on COVID-19 vaccines. We rate the claim as, they call it a half truth, because they ain't got all the evidence for it. But what they have the evidence for has been lined out. Now, this Politico article, right? This was November. So I did this to show y'all that in November, they was already up on this information. But in 2022, this was published 19 hours ago. This was published, where my date at? In November as well. This was published, where my retraction at? My retraction date. This year. These people were already on this study. But as you can see, in November, they were saying it's not true. They wouldn't they wouldn't rule it all the way out, because that's how science works. But then when they got this study, that was an in vitro in the human liver cell line, they began to come and attack the misinformation from this. This was actually published in the December, but people have still been using this to grow on. And here's the article as it is retracted. See, received December, pushed December. Your boy video brings it back to life February, and he gets mistaken, but it's okay. He can do it. But I just wanted to go ahead and just give y'all somebody who shows a non-biased approach to all the science, and then I'm gonna come back and give y'all a little bit more data.
Hey, so a lot of people have sent me this recent Swedish study that implies that Pfizer's mRNA vaccine actually incorporates into our DNA and might scramble our genes. At least that's how it's been framed by a lot of vaccine hesitant folks. And the people who email me are actually legitimately concerned. They're worried. They're like, oh my gosh, this implies that this vaccine that I've either taken or I'm planning to take is going to actually harm my genetics. And maybe what if it crosses the placenta and harms the genetics of a child and pregnant moms and all that? Okay, I looked at this paper very carefully, and I'm going to tell you right now, there is nothing to worry about, but let's go through it so that you can understand, all right? And it's difficult to understand this. Like, I have a degree with honors in molecular and cell biology from UC Berkeley. I had to read this thing very carefully still, all right? So a layperson has no hope of this without help. So this is the background of this that you need to understand before we can look at the paper. And by the way, it was published in the Current Issues in Molecular Biology, which is a kind of a lower grade journal, not cited very often. You have to pay to kind of publish in it. So you always want to look at those things first off.
My bad.
People with ADHD,
my bad, y'all.
And before we can look at the paper.
Listen.
So a layperson has no hope of this without help. So this is the background of this that you need to understand before we can look at the paper. And by the way, it was published in the Current Issues in Molecular Biology, which is a kind of a lower grade journal.
I want to leave this on the screen, which is kind of a lower grade journal. It was published here. MDPI.
And by the way, it was published in the Current Issues in Molecular Biology, which is a kind of a lower grade journal, not cited very often. You have to pay to kind of publish in it. So you always want to look at those things first off.
You got to do what? What you got to do to get it published?
So you always want to look at those things for journal, not cited very often. You have to pay to kind of publish in it. So you always
No. You can't tell me that we got people running around here with a low grade journal that people gotta pay to publish in, and they sitting here and acting like this is some science going on. Now you see why the retraction is in full effect.
lower grade journal, not cited. This is the background of this that you need to understand before we can look at the paper. And by the way, it was published in the Current Issues in Molecular Biology, which is a kind of a lower grade journal, not cited very often. You have to pay to kind of publish in it. So you always want to look at those things first off. The first thing you need to understand is how the vaccine kind of works. So we have DNA, which is our genetic code that lives in our nucleus. That DNA is to make proteins is transcribed. It's like an instruction set. It's transcribed into messenger RNA. That messenger RNA leaves the nucleus, goes into the cytoplasm of the cell, where these ribosomes, which are little cellular machines, turn it into, it's like an email instruction code, turns it into a protein. And those proteins then kind of self-assemble into different structures that we need for life. The way viruses work, Sars Cov2, is it's an RNA virus, and it comes and it injects its RNA that has the instructions, kind of like a messenger RNA, to make itself. So it hijacks the ribosomes and makes copies of itself that self-assemble and get pushed out through the membranes, and that's how you get viruses. So what the Pfizer vaccine does, and the Moderna for that matter, is they take messenger RNA and they've designed their own sort of altered messenger RNA that codes for the spike protein only. So not the other parts of the virus that will cause it to assemble and cause harm, but just the spike protein. They then wrap it in a lipid nanoparticle so it isn't broken down, because messenger RNA is very unstable. It breaks down very quickly. And that lipid nanoparticle then can fuse with cell membranes, which are also sort of phospholipids, and allow that little email to enter the cell, where it's then transcribed by the ribosomes into protein. That spike protein, this protein goes to the cell surface, tells the immune system, hey, look here, this is not something you want, learn how to fight it, so when the real virus comes, you don't get severely ill. All right, you get a head start on it, a little memory boost for it. That's the principle of how these things work. Now, from the early days of the vaccine, people were expressing concern, well, could this messenger RNA be put into our own DNA and alter our own genome, which could cause cancers, it could cause mutations, it could cause problems, because other viruses can do this. In fact, retroviruses, actually, like HIV, are actually designed to do this. They have RNA, they inject it into the cell. That RNA cannot turn into DNA unless it gets into the nucleus and actually is turned into DNA and then is integrated into our own DNA. Well, to do that, you need two things. You need an enzyme called reverse transcriptase, which the virus has. It actually codes for. And that reverse transcriptase turns RNA back into DNA, hence the term reverse. So normally you're turning DNA into messenger RNA. This does the opposite. So now you have DNA.
So, hey, what he's kicking right now is in our molecular biology book in volume 2. You may have seen me or Unc show this book several times. I know Nunu has it. But in our virology text, we learned about the very thing that's going on. I think we even did a study group on reverse transcription and everything. So when going through these studies and understanding what these things do, we are ahead of that. But let him finish. My bad, y'all.
Then what the virus does is it has an enzyme called integrase. Integrase then allows that DNA to incorporate into our DNA. And once it's there, it can be transcribed into mRNA and make copies of virus. So there's a long history of these viruses actually incorporating into our DNA. And actually, there are probably large segments of our own DNA that contain old viral pieces, these, you know, and these kind of transposons and different things like that, it gets beyond the scope of this discussion. So there's precedent for that, right? So people were concerned, could mRNA then get into our DNA? Now, here's what's missing in the Pfizer vaccine: reverse transcriptase and integrase. So those steps are missing. Now, what this study did was it said, well, wait, humans have a form of reverse transcriptase that's native to humans that does very specific things in the cell. What if that could turn the RNA from the Pfizer vaccine into DNA and then incorporate into the genome, theoretically, right? Well, so what they did was they then said, well, let's see if we can prove this. Now, you can tell by the way they've written the article that they already assume this is going to happen. Like, they have a bias going in, and the kind of grammar is a little funky and all that. Maybe it's because they're Swedish, but you kind of wonder, like, did they even get this thing edited? Like, again, it speaks to the quality of the journal. But what they did was they took cell lines in vitro. So this is not in humans, it's not in animals. It's in vitro, in a test tube, in a dish, in a petri dish. These cell lines are called HUH7, HA7 cells. They are carcinoma cells. They are liver cancer cells. So already they're abnormal. They already replicate without any breaks on their replication, and they have totally sort of different activities on many levels because they're cancer cells. All right. So what they did was they took these cells and they bathed them in different concentrations of the Pfizer mRNA vaccine. Then, surprise, surprise, they saw that the mRNA entered the cells and was turned into spike protein. Okay, that's perfect. That's what they are designed to do. Now, typically, we don't bathe our liver cells in that mRNA construct because it's injected in the deltoid. And so the concentrations that they reached around these cells would never be reached in real humans. All right, so that's one thing. And these are cancer cells. That's another thing. And it's not in the real human system. It's in a petri dish where they're directly putting the stuff on. That's another thing. So about 1% of all in vitro studies actually show any clinical relevance in actual humans when you actually play them out. So that's why in vitro is a start, but it's not something that you panic over, right? I mean, there are a lot of things in vitro that stop Sars Cov2, but they don't work in real humans. All right, so, or even in animals. What they then saw was, oh, let's then grind up the cells, grind up the nuclei, dissolve all the RNA there using something called RNase, an enzyme, and whatever's left is presumably DNA. And let's run a PCR to see if we can detect spike protein DNA that would have been converted from the RNA by human reverse transcriptase. And lo and behold, they found DNA amplicons. They found DNA copies that they said were pretty much looked like they'd been transcribed from. And again, I haven't looked at I haven't replicated the study, so I don't know if their methods were flawed or if they, you know, there's something else wrong there. Like, other scientists have to replicate it, but I don't even think it's worth doing. But those are the caveats. What they found was, oh, there's DNA there, presumably in the nucleus. So this mRNA at these high concentrations they administered was converted by these cancer cells, their own, presumably their own human reverse transcriptase, into DNA. And that's what the paper showed. So what does that mean? Well, without integrase, they even say in the paper, we do not see or have looked for evidence of integration into the genome. But they speculate, well, maybe it can cross the placenta and maybe it can do this. So, but that means nothing. They never looked for actual integration into your DNA. So the thing that people are saying is happening is not happening. That's the simplest way to talk about it. Now, here's the best part. Since we don't have integrase, we can't do this. People forget there are 2 vaccines that we use that use DNA instead of mRNA.
Johnson & Johnson.
And Johnson & Johnson. They use a DNA in an adenovirus, a replication deficient human or chimpanzee adenovirus, depending on the vaccine, that then injects this DNA. The DNA then does enter the nucleus. It is then transcribed into mRNA that then makes spike protein. So we already have vaccines that actually put spike protein DNA in the nucleus, and those don't integrate into our DNA. We haven't seen massive examples of cancers and, you know, infertility and all the things the anti-vaxxers say that are happening, which we don't see on the ground at all. And so we already do this. So nothing in this paper is like, huh? If it's even true, because you're using cancer cells in vitro, right? So the bottom line is, should you worry about scrambling your DNA with an mRNA vaccine? Answer is not based on anything we've seen or any evidence we have today at all, right? Now that is always something that could show up later, but it'd be pretty far-fetched based on all the things I've said. So all of that being said, now what happens? What would happen if spike protein actually did incorporate the DNA? Well, we're not even sure it would be harmful, right? Because the spike protein itself, contrary to what there's a lot of anti-vaccine rhetoric around spike protein, it's actually just a protein, right? It actually generates an immune response. It's a foreign protein, but it in itself is not going to cause widespread havoc, right? So the big picture is, don't worry about this, right? And I know there are a lot of people who are stressed, so don't. So share this video with people who are stressed about it. If you like what we do in our style of educating, hit us up, become a supporter of the show. That's how we fund all this, zdogmd.com/supporters.
So back to the study. We start here to understand what's going on. In our starting here, we uncovered a few things. It helped us to know. We identified Hu7. We knew that going in. We identified the vaccine of concern. We knew that going in. We knew the Hu7 deals specifically with the human liver cell line. We knew that the study was in vitro. We knew that the cell line comes from a Japanese male from the 1980s. And this could be this cell line could be replicated in laboratories. This is what we know. What Dr. Z also exposed about this study was that the cell lines used were already cancerous. And also that they also pulled out the RNA, leaving DNA to be the significant advantage of, the the significant portion of the study. And it's bad because I'm trying to blow this up for y'all. They don't give you no way to visit this because it's no longer a link to do it. And whoever mocked this and scanned it to their website, they didn't do anything right about it. Look. I can't even move the article. Anyway, so now you know. And knowing is half the battle. So I'm gonna go back here and hopefully YouTube, y'all don't trip on what I'm about to do. But we got people that really need to understand what the argument is. So let's take it back from the top.
But let's geek out a little bit. Let's go into some deep science here. There's a study out of Sweden that I think everyone really should take a look at. Really important. It's titled "Sars Cov2 Spike Impairs DNA Damage Repair and Inhibits VDJ Recombination in Vitro." Now, we're going to break this down a little bit, make it easy to understand. So what these researchers, what they write is they say here, by using an in vitro cell line, remember that's in a controlled environment, such as in the lab, like a Petri dish or a test tube, we report that the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein significantly inhibits DNA damage repair Mechanistically, we found that the spike protein localizes in the nucleus and inhibits DNA damage repair by impeding key DNA repair protein BRCA1 and 53BP1 recruitment to the damaged site. So a lot going on there, but one of the main takeaways we should really hear when reading that is it's concentrating in the nucleus. The nucleus of the cell is the main control center. It's the VIP section. It's the brain of the cell. Nothing should be getting in there like a spike protein. And even at the beginning, when these vaccines were getting rolled out, these mRNA vaccines, we were told the vaccines do not enter the nucleus. We were told they do not alter the DNA. So this study appears to fly in the face of those statements. And again, these are just the basic start of the study. But, you know, we're talking about the vaccines already rolled out. So why weren't these basic things done? So now let's continue. Here's an image from the study, and this is the intracellular, what they found intracellularly. So you have these NSPs, non-structural proteins across the top, 1, 5, 9, 13, 14, 16, and then there's the spike protein. That's what's being found in the nucleus. So there's a visual representation of that, and those three things on the left, those are just dyes and stains that they use to identify it. But now the researchers go on to say, they go on to quote in this study, they say, our findings reveal a potential molecular mechanism by which the spike protein might impede adaptive immunity and underscore the potential side effects of full-length spike-based vaccines. Now, here's where it gets into the science, and this is really important to understand. They go on to say NHEJ and homologous recombination, HR, those are the two acronyms we really want to pay attention to here, repair, are two major DNA repair pathways that not only continuously monitor and ensure genome integrity, but are also vital for adaptive immune cell function. So let's look at those two acronyms a little bit. I pulled this study on those recombination mechanisms in human cells, and it says here, looking at all the literature, the scientists say, we conclude that in proliferating cells, NHEJ repairs 75% of DSPs, that's double strand breaks, while HR repairs the remaining 25%. So
this
together,
is some important stuff. So if you are injecting a vaccine where the side effect is blocking this action, which is what's repairing your DNA on a constant basis, you could be in real trouble.
That's right. And the DSPs, the double strand DNA breaks of all the different classes of DNA damage, is arguably the most significant, because if these don't get repaired, or if they're repaired incorrectly or slowly, we're talking cell death, we're talking the early steps to cancer formation. So now let's look. The researchers, what they did is they created various DNA damage and treatments on these cells, and they found that there's less repairs in the presence of the spike protein in the nucleus. So check out this graph right here. We'll break this down. So we have the two repair mechanisms.
Now, I let them ramble on a little bit, and you only got one person really saying too much. But they did all of this and never told the truth. They were dead at pathogens. They were dead at pathogens. The vaccine is not a pathogen. The vaccines never enter the nucleus of the cell. But we do have two vaccines that do. This is why I said Dr. Z washed the whole study away. First of all, the study was washed right here.
That you need to understand before we can look at the paper. And by the way, it was published in the Current Issues in Molecular Biology, which is a kind of a lower grade journal, not cited very often. You have to pay to kind of publish in it. So you always want to look at those things first off. The first thing you need to understand is how the vaccine kind of works. So
at the gate, there's no evidence. I mean, I could have went from the dome on this because I know how the vaccine works, but people wouldn't listen to me. So if I just told you from my perspective how the vaccine works, which I have several times, people wouldn't listen to me. So I had to walk y'all through two studies. One, the study that they actually show in vitro using the human cell lining of a liver from a Japanese person from 1980 to bring y'all up to speed on some of the things that you're going to hear, show you a December article from Dale Bigtree and his boy that's finally circulating, and then the actual new or the republishing of this article, accepted date of this article, and then walk you down through all of that with other information to actually say that. Now, earlier on when this study was first published, you had two sites, fact-checking sites, that ruled how they ruled based on a lack of data. And then you have a more updated site that updated this information to rule it all the way out of there based on further information and studies that existed. Now we have a low grade site. You pay to publish. You got questions about their research and methodology. You don't tell the whole truth. You got anti-vaxxers pushing this shit. And here we are again with another debunked claim. So for anyone sending me the video that misrepresents what he actually saying in this video, you tripping. Look. I got it up. I know what I'm talking about. I got his source up because this is the updated version. Same argument, different way. We're getting the same results. We're getting the same results. And let me try to find where he goes to the whiteboard and says what he says. See? Talking about cancer and all that. Where this dude getting up going to the whiteboard there, man? Anyway. Be careful when you're reviewing things and you're hearing certain things that aren't really detailing the specifics. As you can see, Pfizer vaccine becomes DNA in the human liver cell Hu7 in vitro Swedish study. You take this, you run with it, and you don't understand what is going on. You don't understand what's going on. So now you see how I walked you through things and how we got to this point of this really being the cause of concern, because this is where it all stems from. And then this is the second attempt in the same journal access. First attempt, second attempt. And the cleanup man. I had to bring you the cleanup man and then the retraction source and then another retraction source, which both update. Because if I just came out the side of my face and in my Facebook comments and said, nah, that's not true, you wouldn't have believed me. You wouldn't have took me at my word, and you wouldn't have tried to actually build with me on it or anything like that. Now, give me 1 second, because I need to update in the description of the video this information, because I know that some of you may refer back to this show and you may want the sources. Now remember, I am live on both the Mossy Warrior Clan YouTube channel and I am live on Science with Sean. So just bear with me. I'm gonna hit y'all off with this information. But all the sources, studies in the whole nine, are in the description of this video. Ain't no way. Ain't no way around these daggers. Ain't no way. They locked and loaded. They locked and loaded. So I'm looking in the chat trying to see if anybody really got questions, comments, or concerns. Especially if you're on the opposite side of it. What's your questions, comments, or concerns? Is there something you need me to go back to? Is there a point that was being made that you would like to see made? I mean, hashed out or whatever. Your channel. What's up? Do everybody pretty much understand it? Well, I know all y'all wanted to know is if this stuff was true or not. You don't pretty much care about nothing else. But for those of you who have been following us since the pandemic and kicked off and the vaccine's been going on, you are pretty much already up on game. There was nothing pretty much to actually that would get you in a position to where you would not know. CK, why you keep bringing that up? I told you I got a whole show on the different levels of journal sites. So you have journals where you can pay to publish in them, and there's a list of those low-level journal sites, and they're not highly referred to. And then you have a mid-tier, which get hits, and then you have an upper tier where the experts actually extract real data from. Meaning a study like an in vitro study like that was published in that lower level journal, if it had any merit, it would have been published in a greater journal. It would have been submitted for approval, and it would have had more of a peer review process. And, it would have had to be airtight for it to go through a qualification phase for it to be published. Well, with this particular site, you don't go through the scrutiny that you would if it was New England Journal of Medicine, Nature, The Lancet, and so forth. Although you have seen articles retracted in the Lancet due to some data issues, you'll have those. That happens. When people go to replicate the study to see if they come to the same conclusion as you and they don't, they start checking your homework, you're going to be in retraction mode. That that should be on the pseudo killers. Now, I don't know. I ain't going to help you find it or nothing like that. But I don't want to talk about the journal stuff right now. If people can't find it, then I may get into that on a different time. But hey, if you tell them to stick to science and not trying to, never mind. All right, we'll talk about that another time. I ain't getting into the different levels of the journals right now. I'm unprepared to continue to have that conversation. Oh man, that man on the attack. Yeah, Cedric, they use old Dale Yeah, let me answer this. Yes, I'm aware about the look, I got issues with some plasma stuff. Although there's studies that went out there to show that some of the plasma treatments were successful, but earlier on they were failing. I'm not a fan of that whole plasma game right now. I don't think that's the right way for us to actually engage our true protection in a fight against a novel virus. CK just want me to do some stuff so she can. So the more I talk, the better it is for her to keep doing her job so she can get off. By the time I get done talking, she'll be off work. So she's trying to use me to occupy her workspace. Mongo said he been waiting 2 years for the big name pseudos, the goat of the pseudos, or the scam gods of the BC, he meant black community, to present me an alternative, and still nothing. Don't tell me sea moss and elderberry. Nah, man, sea moss and elderberry ain't stopping nothing. Look, CK, see, I told y'all she using me. She want to give me a topic so that I can keep talking and then claim, nah, she just like hearing me drop some knowledge. We know your shift almost over. That boy Teddy crazy. He said play the Kevin Gates song. Hold up. You mean the video or the song? I'll play the song. Hold on, I gotta get it pulled up. I'll play the song though. Y'all just want to hear you just want to hear the intro though. Is that what you want to do? You want to hear the intro? Teddy. This was Teddy right here, y'all.
Yeah. I'm built for a talk. No. This how I used to be feeling killer, girl. Yeah.
Crossed out Hicks.
Feel like I'm possessed. I wanna have a baby dead. It just ain't happened yet.
That ain't what you want though. You didn't want that part of it. I think you wanted this part. Hold up.
Somebody else. Big Dana for some pictures. I just really missed you. Roaming the trenches where the cocaine get delivered. Say, look. Don't never go look for yourself inside somebody else, you heard me? Cause some of these niggas out here ain't really cut like we cut. You know, we cut from a bandana. You know, these niggas cut from shit paper, you heard me? That shit sounds good until it takes place. And I'm built for a tough, and I still hold up.
That's what Teddy wanted.
And I'm built for a tough, and I still hold up.
Crossed out Hicks. Feel like I'm possessed. I don't want to ignore this comment that's on the Mossy. And I don't think that I can see it in this chat right now because of all the other comments. But Sister Marie Shy, peace to you, sister, and you're welcome. I don't know if you're still tuned in or listening, but you're welcome. Peace to Brother Ali Dawood L. I always mess your name up. And what up, Ramon? What's good? I see you late in the building. But I think that's what Teddy wanted. He wanted to hear that part right there. I'm playing one more time for Teddy, man. He funny, man. You know what I'm saying? He'll get you in some mess.
It's the reason. Ain't say, look, don't never go look for yourself inside somebody else, you heard me? Because some of these niggas out here ain't really cut like we cut. You know, we cut from a bandana. You know, these niggas cut from shit paper, you heard me? That shit sounds good until it takes place.
That's the truth. I'm built for tough, and I still hold up. Yeah. When you can't stand alone, you ain't built for tough.
I'm built for tough, and I still hold up.
Yeah, you gotta be able to stand on your own.
I'm built for tough, and I still hold up.
That's why I don't be fearing nothing nobody be saying, man. They just be capping, man. Talking crazy, saying things, doing all that. You know what I mean? Subliminals and all that. Like, come on, yo. Ain't that serious. You want to have a conversation with somebody, man, and you don't even know how. You don't know how to extract the claim. They ain't going to you to actually deal with a lot of this information. You ain't extracting the claim, but you want to have a conversation. You got to know how to extract the claim so we know what we're talking about. If we don't know, if I know what we're talking about and you don't know what we're talking about, it don't make no sense for us to sit here and for you to interrogate, because then I'm leading the conversation, I'm dominating the conversation, and you're the only one asking questions. So it's an interrogation at that point, because you're trying to extract what I read, what I learned, what I may know that you don't know. And you don't have to ever submit or subject yourself to scrutiny, because you're going to take your position as your biased position and stay locked into the point that, hey, I ain't got to say nothing. I'm just going to say they ain't did this, they ain't did that, and I'm just going to keep asking you questions. That's not a conversation. You got to read the same material I'm reading so that we can build and we can know together. This is similar to something that I was told a while back by someone in particular. They told me, I'm glad that you're reading the material that I've already been reading, because I got tired of not having nobody to have these conversations with. And he says that often. So I need you to read the material that I'm reading so that we can have a conversation about it. So it ain't just a group of certain individuals that can actually know how to have that conversation. It could be more people included in those conversations with different perspectives, with ways of challenging the information from other avenues that can allow that to develop into a learning, a teaching moment, and advance information. Help us all grow. But until that occurs, you know, it is Friday. You might be on that good cognac. CK is playing Borderlands. Zion said he messed with that one. Yeah, man. I mean, he just told the truth at the end. You know what I'm saying? It was one of the reasons, man. Sometimes he be talking this. He be talking that talk, and you can relate to it. You know what I mean? Especially in a situation where you got a group of people thinking that they got you cornered on some bull junk or whatever, or you know what I mean? They rub the wrong way because you attacking their ability to be able to do something. You know, so it's like, you know, stand on my own. I don't need my brothers in this. I separate myself and I stand on my own. That boy said smoking fives at OG. But listen, we got the work. Is there? This video is specifically for that claim. Anyone pushing the Sweden study talking about the DNA gets in, the vaccine gets in Pfizer's vaccine, spike protein is deadly, get into your DNA, alter your DNA, and the whole 9 yards. We walked them, right? We have a plethora of sources. And we have the actual conversation from from 2 doctors. Both read the studies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 8 sources and 2 videos. And now this one. So there's a body of knowledge that can help advance the conversation and help people come to an honest conclusion at the end. It's not for me to make up your mind for you. Based on what we've uncovered, you can now draw your conclusion regarding the scientific data. Tyson, you're doing too much. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, Sean P. And you already know what I'm about to do.
Too legit.